Well, nothing works till everything works, and that's certainly the story of the technology behind the studio. We lost audio for a while, and but we're back. I think I'm your host, David O'Reilly, and we're going to go through. We've already been through the big picture on the local elections. We're going through what's of particular interest to in concerning the nationalist elected councillors, and we're going to look at 6 people who've been elected. Then we're going to have a look at concerning news from Derry with Anne McCluskey and a shocking result from a court case that she attended just recently. Anne McCluskey running as an independent in Westminster in the upcoming elections. We're going to have a look at the big picture with the European Parliament, something many of us know little about, what happens when we elect our European representatives and send them off to Europe. What are they participating in and how does that work? What is the power play? What are the different groupings that they're joined to, and what is the swing? What is the mood across Europe generally? So, and then finally wrapping up with a roundup of the European counts in Dublin, Ireland South, Ireland Northwest, the counts which are still going on, but coming quickly to a conclusion. So we'll finish up with that. But in our last bulletin that was disrupted by a technical fault, we went over the historic moment that Malachy Steenson was elected for North Inner City Dublin, followed closely by Gavin Pepper in Ballymun Finglas. We went over a couple of the candidates who nearly made it but lost out at the last minute: Stephen Kerr, Ross Lahive, Lester Gordon. We looked at Patrick Quinlan in Blanchardstown, who was elected for the National Party. And as we lost you, we were just going over the IFP's success with Glenmore in Palmerstown, Fort Hill, in South Dublin constituency. So there was 17 candidates running, and Glenmore started with 964 first preferences. He benefited from Colin Quinn, the Aintu candidates, some of his transfers, but by and large there was a lot of independence, and Glenmore was elected with on the 15th count, also with Madeleine Johnson of the People Before Profit. But Glenmore was elected on the 15th count, one of 5 councillors for Palmerstown, Fort Hill. So Kevin Coyle was looking very strong in Artane and Whitehall, but lost out at the last post for a seat. That's independent Kevin Coyle. Also Dee Wall in Ballyfermot Drimna missed out by a couple of places, not quite enough votes to get her over the line there. But the successes of today were one, Peter O'Donoghue, who is a long-term campaigner with Dermot O'Kayla in Cork, and he got elected in Fermoy. So another of the candidates that we're familiar with, who's been campaigning over the last 5 years, a well-known figure in Fermoy who ran in the same constituency as Derek Bly. So having a look at his constituency there was 6 seats in Fermoy. There was 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 candidates running, 4 independents, an Independence Ireland candidate, and Derek Bly for Ireland First. So Derek Bly put in a very good showing of 899 votes. Peter O'Donoghue, independent, getting 937 votes. The independents, Joe Tobin, Frank Roche, William O'Leary went out, as well as Thomas Horgan. Derek Bly's transfers gave him a good boost, and also there was Ken Brennan, Independence Ireland candidate, who went out early. But all those votes, those transfers accumulated, got Peter O'Donoghue over the line in Fermoy, a well-known candidate, having campaigned with Dermot O'Kayla in Cork. So there was some surprising news. A surprise candidate, Tom McDonnell, was elected in Newbridge in Kildare. Tom McDonnell as it was reported, Tom McDonnell was a surprise. He celebrated his success at the Count Centre. Newbridge resident and independent politician Tom McDonnell, representing Newbridge on Kildare County Council. He got transfers from Melissa Byrne, the Aontú candidate, which put him ahead of James Stokes, the Fianna Fáiler. Now, Tom McDonnell has 3 children in Australia, I believe, abroad, and he spoke about that as he celebrated his success. He was criticising the level of immigration into Ireland and its effect on housing. He questioned why our youngest and brightest were leaving, and he said that our women were not getting a chance to form families. He was talking about delayed adulthood, about the no housing, no families, no future. And he was saying that our women are only having a 1.6 to 1.9 birth replacement rate, and drew attention to those concerns, something which I'm sure the Aontú candidate would also share with him. He said that there was a lack of school places and services for not only the locals but also all the migrants who were arriving in Ireland. So that was Tom McDonnell, elected in Newbridge, Kildare. A big success. Tom McDonnell, having been a campaigner in Newbridge for quite a long time, well recognised by the Hold the Liners and other people in Kildare. So Tom McDonnell was elected on the, well, let's get it up and we'll have a look and see. We'll go and have a look at the Newbridge constituency in Kildare, see what county was elected on. Kildare County Council. So it was a surprise election, one which a lot of people weren't following, but in Newbridge there were 6 seats, and Tom McDonnell was one of 3 independents, and the Aintu candidate Melissa Byrne polling well there too. In fact, polling ahead of Tom McDonnell. So Tom McDonnell would have gained transfers from the independents and also from Aintu to get himself over the line, and he was elected on the 11th count along with Fianna Fáil, Noel Heavey and Rob Power, another Fianna Fáil. So that's Tom McDonnell. Congratulations in Newbridge, Kildare. So he's the 6th elected candidate who has been well recognised in opposition, I suppose, nationalist circles, and the concerns he raised were very similar to the concerns raised in Dublin by Gavin Pepper, Malachy Steenson, Patrick Quinlan and Glenn Moore. So a couple of others who lost, also losing out, was Mike Burke, who didn't quite make it over the line in Donaghmede. Mike Burke, an independent, a well-known campaigner in Dublin as well, who didn't make it onto the Donaghmede County Council, but very close there. So next, one of the candidates who ran in Letterkenny for the Irish people was Dr. Anne McCluskey, and we've had very alarming news from herself today. You might remember her as the doctor who would preface any of her statements with a proviso. I don't know if we're going to run that. Yeah. So here's Anne McCluskey and her statement preceding any media or public statement she made, and you could see the pressure she was under, that every public statement she made was went with a proviso on her, with a legal statement, and this is the legal statement that she made.
I, Mary Ann, am a private civilian protected by the Geneva Convention. What follows are my personal experiences, observations and opinions, and the information is for educational purposes only. And although I'm a doctor, I'm not your doctor. I'm not here to give medical advice or legal advice. And it's not my intention to harass, intimidate, offend, to defame, conspire, blackmail, coerce, or cause anxiety, alarm, or distress to any man or woman. The information presented here is done so with peaceful and honourable intentions.
Anne McCluskey, under intense pressure as a doctor, she challenged many of the much of the lockdown and the mandatory vaccine program. She was one of the doctors who made a challenge and paid a high price, came under enormous pressure over the period of the lockdowns, and was thrown into the political arena very much out of retirement because of her stance. One of very few doctors in Ireland who, just a handful, who raised concerns and campaigned from a professional perspective against the big pharma health campaign and its imposition on the public. And as a result of her campaigning, her political campaign has been disrupted by her by her opposition to the vaccination program. So Anne McCluskey is a candidate in the upcoming Westminster elections, and she had been fined in connection with COVID. She refused to pay the fine and appeared at Londonderry Magistrates Court in connection with the fine. She was given an immediate warrant to pay the fine or go to prison for 14 days. So Dr. McCluskey is running as an independent in Foyle in the UK general election. The fine was imposed in 2022. So this is a 2-year-old breach of COVID regulations. Something like being out of your constriction area. So the Northern Irish Court Service has confirmed that Dr. Anne McCluskey has been sent to Hyde Bank Wood Prison for, we assume, for 14 days for non-payment of a COVID fine. So very surprising and shocking absence of Anne McCluskey from her political campaign, jailed for a COVID fine. So she was speaking at an anti-lockdown rally in Derry in 2020. So this is a 4-year-old fine from action she took 4 years ago, and she has been jailed for 14 days in the beginning of her campaign, her Westminster campaign. Very shocking that a candidate for a Westminster election could be jailed for a relatively minor contravention of a COVID regulation from 4 years ago. So Anne McCluskey had been suspended from practicing as a GP for 6 months in October 2023 over comments about the COVID-19 vaccinations. And she had expressed concerns. Anne McCluskey is a doctor, she's a GP, and she had concerns, and she'd spoken on social media about young people in particular taking the COVID jabs in as far back as 2021. She appealed that decision, and the medical authority rejected her appeal. As we see in the Republic, there is now a COVID inquiry. There are major concerns about excess deaths, and it is a concern. The World Health Organization is also coming under pressure to review the WHO pandemic treaty, and the pandemic treaty itself is stalled, as I understand it, at the moment. So Anne McCluskey, one of the very few doctors who raised concerns about the WHO, about the COVID policies, and those very much at the same time as the pandemic treaty is stalled and COVID policy is coming under review, both in the Republic and elsewhere. Anne McCluskey, very harsh result from the court in Londonderry or Derry, and now she is in the prison service confirmed that she's in Hyde Wood prison over her refusal on a principled stance to pay a COVID fine. So shocking news there tonight, and very surprising and unexpected. So I'm sure many people concerned about Anne, and we will be following that story over the coming days. So now we go to the European elections, and I think it's important to understand the big picture with the European elections. I think a lot of people don't know much about the European Parliament and don't know much about the groupings in the Parliament that our MEPs are involved with. At the moment, there are 720 MEPs, and there are some major groupings with the MEPs. We have the European People's Party, which I think before we go through them, it's interesting to have that up on the screen, but also to go through the process of legislation in the European Parliament. The European Parliament, the members cannot initiate legislation. Legislation comes from the Commission. The Commission is elected or rubber-stamped, approved by the MEPs. That would have been Claude Juncker or van der Leyen, but the Commission itself initiates legislation. The members, the MEPs, can amend it, they can make recommendations, they can refuse to pass it, but they cannot initiate legislation. The Commission does, the MEPs process it, and then the Council is the body which puts it into law. So one of the least representative of the people, it's not a model of parliamentary representation which would represent the people as closely as the national parliaments that do initiate or that have a much bigger role in initiating legislation. So there are a number of groupings in the European Parliament, but let's see what is happening in the European Parliament. What we're seeing is that the European People's Party, which is the controlling party at the moment, is coming under a heavy challenge from the right or nationalist parties. So the centre-right party, the EPP, is set to return about 180 lawmakers out of the 720. They have held their ground. The centre-left Socialists and Democrats have remained stable, but the Liberal Renew group, which Fianna Fáil are associated, has lost ground over these elections. The groupings that would be represent the AfD in Germany, Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy, and Marine Le Pen's Rally Nationale, those have are increasing in gains. They would be represented by the European Conservatives and Reformists, the ECR, which I think in this chart is the Conservatives and Reformists, but also by the this is the blue group here, but there is also the Identity and Democracy group, which is also represented by right-leaning nationalists. They are in dark blue there, we'll go through them again. Here's the European People's Party in light blue, then the Socialists and Democrats, who have held up fairly well. Renew in yellow have lost considerably recently. That group includes Fianna Fáil. The European People's Party would include Fine Gael. Socialists and Democrats, let's see who that includes. Socialists and Democrats, or the left, I don't know if that is the left, may include Sinn Féin and Labour. Would they be described as the Socialists and Democrats? Oh no, the lefts are a different group. Sinn Féin is involved in a smaller group called the Left, and they are in dark red. Then Labour, Social Democrats, I'm at the moment not sure who they come under. The Greens come under the Greens, EPA, and Aontú has elected one, or Aontú may, no, Aontú is not represented at the moment. But going back to the right nationalists in the European Parliament, they now, as a group, are now challenging the EPP, have about 180, are going to come out with about 180 seats. The ECR, the ID, as well as other groups, are going to come out with up to 170 seats. So that's a big change, a growing change in the European Parliament. The challenge from the nationalist right gaining in momentum, and the quickest growing groups in the Parliament. They're represented by the European Conservative and Reformists and the Identity and Democracy group. They will have about 131 seats in the chamber. Also, the Alternative for Germany, AFD, have 15 lawmakers. Hungary, the Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, has about 10. And Poland's Confederation Party have 6, as well as Bulgaria's Revival Party. So these are the nationalist groupings in the European Parliament that are making the challenge to Van der Leyen's EPP group, and Van der Leyen and Fine Gael, I suppose, EPP group on 180 odd seats. The Nationalist Bloc now challenging on around 170 seats taken as a whole. Ireland yet to elect a clearly nationalist MEP, and according to some, we'll have a look at the Irish Euro election results and counts as they stand, coming very close in Dublin to coming to a conclusion on the 4 Dublin Euro seats. Ireland Northwest still counting, and Ireland South still counting. So that's the European Parliament, and those are the groupings that are, amongst others, that are represented there. So we'll go on to the individual constituencies. I think the Dublin group is probably the one which is closest to being to being finished with. Let's have a look at them. So it's looking that it appears that they are on well, these are all high counts, 17th, 18th or 19th count. It looks that at the moment that the people who are most likely to be elected is Barry Andrews for Fianna Fáil, as well as Regina Doherty for Fine Gael. So they look very clear to get elected on 70-odd thousand votes at the 19th count. Then we have Lynn Boylan and Aidan O'Riordan, who are on the 60,000 mark, both of them. So it looks like, in fact, just recently those seats are actually filled now. Niall Boylan in contention for the last seat, but not getting the transfers. If you look at the last few counts, the people who went out was the Social Democrats, People Before Profit, Independents for Change, and the Greens, which would all, as you'd expect, favour Lynn Boylan and Aidan O'Riordan. Very few transfers for Niall Boylan. Let's see, he did get a few transfers on the 17th count when Aintu went out, but after Aisling Considine of Aintu went out, almost no transfers, or very little transfers from Social Democrats. Let's see, 17th count, a few but not many, and not many from Claire Daly, and certainly very little from Kieran Cunliffe. So not enough to get him over the line, whereas the other candidates were getting 4,000, 5,000, 11,000, 16,000, so multiples of transfers of what as to what Niall Boylan was hoping to get. Niall Boylan, the radio personality, putting in a very strong showing, getting 50,000 votes in Dublin, and being in the last in the hunt for the last seat, but unfortunately Social Democrats, People Before Profit, Independents for Change, Greens not giving him the transfers he needed to get over the line. Those transfers going to Aidan O'Riordan and Lynn Boylan are getting them over the line. So the four elected candidates, MEPs for Dublin, are Barry Andrews, Fianna Fáil, Regina Doherty from Fine Gael, Lynn Boylan, Sinn Féin, and Aidan O'Riordan from Labour. So no change in Dublin. However, a good challenge from Niall Boylan. Also, good challenges from Aisling Considine, Malachy Steenson making a good vote. Also, Philip Dwyer for Ireland First, Rebecca Barrett for the National Party, Andy Heisman for the Irish People, and a number of and Dermot O'Connellan for the Irish Freedom Party, as well as other independents. So that's the story of the Dublin count. The challenge going to the challenge to the status quo coming from Niall Boylan for Independence Ireland, but making that challenge but not getting enough transfers to get him over the line. So that's a result from Dublin. We might go to Ireland Northwest next and see how that is going. I think that is the Ireland Northwest being probably the let's see, Ireland Northwest I think being the slowest count of them all. Let's have a look. Yeah, Ireland Northwest. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. There was almost 30 candidates. I think it was the longest ballot, 3 foot long, maybe over 3 foot long, and a huge number of candidates, a very long count, and we'll have a look over what's happening in Midlands Northwest. So it does look like Ming Flanagan is doing very well. He's picking up transfers and also getting a good vote in the first place. Fine Gael's Maria Walsh not doing as well as she might expect, but still looking good for a seat. Nina Carberry picking up a lot of votes from people who feel confident in supporting the government parties. Barry Cowan for Fianna Fáil. So he's those people on those 3 or 4 candidates all on 70 plus thousand votes, with Ming Flanagan headed for 90,000 votes. The challenge seems to have got behind Kieran Mullooly again for Ireland Independence. He's on 65,000 votes, and there are, unlike Dublin where there are 4 candidates elected, in Midlands Northwest there will be 5 candidates elected. Still quite a few rounds to go. We're on the 17th count, but at the moment those 5 candidates looking in like they're in a good place to get a European seat, but it's all those counts. We're going to see at least another 2, 4, 5 counts, so the counting won't be done tonight. Who's left in the race is Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin, Aontú, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin. So a lot of votes for Fianna Fáil. A lot of, let's see what kind of numbers they have. Yeah, this could be a very similar story to the previous story of Niall Boylan, where the transfers from the other parties maybe not making their way to Kieran Mullooly. It does look like Fianna Fáil are going to transfer to Fianna Fáil, and if they transfer in enough numbers, if even half of their transfers get through, they will be competing with Kieran Mullooly for that last place. Sinn Féin also not in the top 5 at the moment, but they have an awful lot of votes, 80,000 votes chasing that seat. So if half of their transfers go from one candidate to the other, they also may be in for the last seat. So all Kieran Mullooly with a lot left to do to get that last seat. What is in Kieran Mullooly's favour is Aintu is on 50,000 votes, and they may or may not. We're looking at transfers from Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin. Chris McManus and Niall Blaney, it looks like they'll go out before Peadar Tóibín. Will Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin transfer enough to Aintu to bring them up? I mean, he's on, Peadar Tóibín is on 50,000 in the same way as Michelle Gildernew is. So if Kieran Mullooly's hope is to get enough transfers from Peadar Tóibín to get him over the line, it's unlikely that Peadar Tóibín is going to get up above Kieran Mullooly to make that challenge. So it looks like Peadar Tóibín's transfers are going to go to Kieran Mullooly rather than the other way around. So it's anybody's guess. There is Independence Ireland and Aintu votes most likely to support each other in aiming for that 70,000-80,000 needed to get that last seat. Two Fianna Fáil candidates, Niall Blaney and Lisa Chambers, are also capable of combining their votes to make that last seat, and the Sinn Féin candidate is probably, from my overview of this situation, which is not a particularly expert, I have no great expertise on this, but my guess is that the Sinn Féiner has a good chance of getting that last seat. I do believe that the Sinn Féin transfers are likely to be more reliable than the Fianna Fáil transfers or the Aintu to Kieran Mullooly transfers. Having said that, the pool of Aintu and Independent Ireland is a bigger pool to get those votes from than the Sinn Féin or Fianna Fáil pool. So it's all what remains is to see how much will Aintu support Independent Ireland, and will that those 50,000 votes get Kieran Mullooly over the line. So it's all down to transfers. It's all down to the voters voting strategically to get like-minded candidates into that last seat there. So it seems almost impossible that Barry Cowan won't get in with two Fianna Fáilers transferring to get over the line. If the Fianna Fáiler is elected, if the two Fianna Fáilers are eliminated, then Barry Cowan is very safe. And for that fourth seat, it's all to play for there. So it's anybody's guess. Probably sometime tomorrow we'll have an idea of what'll happen there. So it looks like Luke Min Flanagan is pretty certain to get in my not particularly educated guess. Nina Carberry is, and Maria Walsh are not certain of a seat either. Barry Cowan does look like he has a very good chance of getting a seat, and then after that it's all to play for to see will Sinn Féin Fianna Fáil or Independence Ireland or Fine Gael get those last fourth and fifth seats. So that's my take on Ireland Mid-North West. So let's see, can we move to the next constituency, which is Ireland South. Let's see, we've got Dublin. I don't think I've got Ireland South on the computer, so I'll lean over and have a look at it here. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's clear. So Ireland South is approaching its conclusion. It is on the 16th count, but closer to a conclusion than Ireland Northwest. It's on its 16th count, and we're looking good. So, one of the 5 seats is actually filled. Sean Kelly is sure of a seat there. He's been elected in Ireland South. So there are 5 seats in Ireland South, and at the moment, Billy Kelleher for Fianna Fáil is following with a strong lead, over 100,000 votes, followed by Kathleen Function and a bunch, 2 people on 70,000. That's Michael McNamara, the Independent, and Mick Wallace on 60,000, and Cynthia Nimurahu for Fianna Fáil on 60,000 too. So who is left in the race is Derek Bly of Ireland First, who has made a very respectable 37,000 votes. So the Nationalist challenge is very strong in Dublin South, with almost 40,000 votes for Derek Bly of Ireland First, which is an extremely strong showing. Now, he may well have benefited from some of the independents. Certainly Ross Lahive going out for the Irish people on 5,000 votes. I'm sure a lot of those transfers, those Cork transfers, going to Derek Bly from Ross Lahive. Una McGurk and Mary Fitzgibbon also could be described as challengers on the right, certainly independents, but raising very many of the same issues as Derek Bly would have raised, and I'm sure their transfers would have gone to Derek Bly as well. So these are strong votes at 6,000 and 6,000 for Mary Fitzgibbon and Una McGurk. Michael Leahy also on 12,000. Sure, many transfers going to Derek from him too. Patrick Murphy from Aintu going out. So a strong showing of anti-establishment, right-leaning parties and candidates having been eliminated, transferring strongly to Derek Bly of Ireland First. Eddie Punch of Ireland Independence also going out. A right-leaning candidate would have done Derek Bly no harm at all. So who's left in it now, with Labour gone out and Sinn Féin's Paul Gavin gone out. Kathleen Function, I'm sure, would have gained a lot of those transfers from himself. So with 25,000 votes to transfer, I'm sure that Kathleen Function benefited very well from that. Whether Mick Wallace would have benefited, that's another possibility, but Mick Wallace, Independence for Change, on 64,000. It'd be very interesting to see how Derek Bly's transfers go, and it does seem to be Derek Bly is most likely the next person to be eliminated. His transfers most likely to go to Michael McNamara and less so to Mick Wallace. But it's anybody's guess. These are new situations, new candidates. There's no track record of how their votes. The tallymen will be watching very closely how those votes go, because this is to them very much new candidates and new voting patterns. So it's anybody's guess to know where they'll go. There is the Fine Gael, John Mullins, still in the race. It's most likely that his transfers will go to Billy Kelleher. There will be a surplus now from Sean Kelly. So that will be very interesting to see where John Mullins's transfers will go. Will they go to the government parties, Fianna Fáil and the Greens? Probably. Will any of them go to Michael McNamara? Hard to tell. But Michael McNamara in a good position, but will depend on Derek Bly's transfers to get him ahead. If he gets enough of Derek Bly's transfers, I think Michael McNamara, the independent, right-leaning independent, is probably safe enough. This all depends how strategic Derek Bly's voters have been, as well as the other nationalists that have transferred to him. So that would be Ross Lahive, Una McGurk, Mary Fitzgibbon, Michael Leahy, and to some degree Eddie Punch. How strategic are their voters? In many cases, these will be 6s and 7s going to Michael McNamara. Some people will have stopped voting at 1. Their vote will not go through to help anybody else over the line. It's the people who will have voted down to 6 and 7 which will now be making an influence on Michael McNamara's vote. So strategic voting on the right will be critical in getting Michael McNamara over the line. Let's see how that's going. We're not far away from finishing up on that. You might blow that up again on the screen, and we'll just have a quick look at the votes. What might happen to Grace O'Sullivan's votes? Now, she's the Green candidate. Her votes could transfer anywhere. I mean, they could transfer to Mick Wallace, but they could transfer to the other government parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, and probably more so Fine Gael than Fianna Fáil. So how Grace O'Sullivan's transfers, it's very unlikely that Derek Bly's transfers are going to go to her. So it does look like Grace O'Sullivan is going to be one of the last to be eliminated. and it will be most likely her votes that will decide whether Mick Wallace gets in or whether the government parties maintain their seats, maintain those seats amongst the 5 elected candidates. So that's not going to be decided today. It's going to be decided sometime tomorrow. So at the moment, with the elections here, we're looking at the European races. The Dublin seats are all filled. Aidan O'Riordan and Boylan for Sinn Féin getting in, or Regina Doherty and Barry Andrews getting elected early on. So that's how it's looking this time. Sean Kelly in Ireland South is elected. Massive vote there, 122,000 for Fine Gael's Sean Kelly. He's he is elected, and we'll see who amongst the rest of them. It looks like Sinn Féin are probably okay for a seat, as well as Fianna Fáil. After that, it could be Mick Wallace, could be Cynthia Murrahu, or Michael McNamara for that seat. Ireland Northwest. Let's see how that's shaping up. Ireland Northwest, still quite a long way off that count being settled. It'll all be down to whether Peadar Tóibín, his transfers from Aintu go to Kieran Mullooly to get him over the line for Ireland independence, or will Sinn Féin's transfers from Chris McManus to Michelle Gildennew get her in for those one of those 5 seats. Luke Ming Flanagan looking pretty certain to stay in there. Fine Gael have definitely got a seat. Barry Cowan looks pretty safe with 2 Fianna Fáilis to be eliminated. Their transfers most certainly going to bring him in, I would imagine. So it's really down to will Peadar Tóibín's transfers keep Kieran Mullooly in the race. So that's all we have for you for tonight. Thanks very much for staying with us. We covered the overview of the local elections, where the government parties are slightly down, identity politics causing havoc on the opposition parties, particularly Sinn Féin, and People Before Profit holding up, and 6 nationalist or right-leaning candidates elected, as well as 6 candidates elected. So that would be Malachy Steenson, independent, Gavin Pepper, independent, Patrick Quinlan for the National Party, Glenn Moore for Irish Freedom Party, Peter O'Donoghue for who was a long-term campaigner with Dermot O'Kayla, and the surprise package of Tom McDonnell in Newbridge, Kildare, who made it with, thanks to the transfers from the other candidates that went out, and made it over the line to be elected in Newbridge, another independent for County Kildare. So we looked at the big picture in the Euro elections, where The EPP, the governing party, is going to be returned with about 180 seats, but being challenged very closely by the nationalist right groupings, which include the ECR, the ID, and a number of other smaller groupings from Hungary, Poland, and Romania, I think. So the balance of power shifting quite significantly in the European Parliament, even though as of yet we have no Irish nationalists elected in big numbers. 6 local councillors made history in being the first nationalist or nationalist leaning councillors certainly since the 50s and certainly since the foundation of the state. Will Ireland Independence elect Kieran Mullooly, who is considered by many to be a right-leaning candidate, although his candidacy, if elected, his time in office will indicate whether he is or not. Will he be elected, and will Michael McNamara in Ireland South get over the line with transfers from Paratóbín? So that's the story from the home in our last election coverage. We will not be having our normal evening weekend news this weekend on Friday. We'll be returning the following week, and our schedule will return to normal, and we'll be back with Tara for the regular home bulletin. So thanks very much for staying with us for our election report, our final election report. We thank you for staying with us. Do follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, and also on the other accounts. Follow us on the home. Get regular updates on when we're going live. Our apologies this evening for our loss of coverage early on in this bulletin. As I said, nothing works till everything works. This is quite a complex technical production to get this to you live. We apologize for losing you for a little while there, but we thanks to the production team to get us back on air and finish off this bulletin tonight. So do follow us on the home. God bless you all. That's all we have for now. Ihawaii give.